Welcome to The Hidden Load, the podcast where we uncover the unseen weight carried by the educators and leaders in medicine and explore how to lighten it. I am Dr. Santina or Tina Wheat. I am a family physician, an educator, a leader, and a coach. Each week, we will dig into the challenges that often go unspoken, from burnout and boundaries to purpose and identity to figuring out sustainability, and share practical tools to help you move from chaos to calm and from burnout to balance. Because the hidden load does not have to be yours to carry alone, and in fact, shouldn't be. Let's get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to The Hidden Load, a podcast for the educators and leaders in medicine. I am Dr. Santina Wheat, and I am so glad you are here. Today is episode 7. We are talking all about purpose. Now, in our last episode, we talked about recovery. And this was recovery not as just an indulgence, but as a strategy. We explored why rest is necessary for resilience, and we talked about how we can model recovery for the people that we lead and we teach. And today, we are moving into another essential piece of combating that hidden load, and that is purpose. If recovery fills our energy tank, purpose gives us that direction. It is the why that sustains us in the middle of the demanding career that we are all facing. And in healthcare, with all of its pressures, the constant changes, and the systemic challenges, purpose is not just a nice to have. It is a necessity. It is a survival tool. But here is the hard truth. Many of us begin our careers with a deep sense of purpose. In that purpose, we all feel the need to heal, if we're educators, to teach, and above all, to think that we are going to be the ones to improve the system. And over time, unfortunately, that clarity just fades. It might be because the paperwork piles up. It might be because the meetings multiply. It might be because the demands are stretching us ever thinner and thinner. And then one day, some of us wake up feeling like we have just lost sight of why we were ever doing this work at all. So in today's episode, we are going to talk about what purpose really means, why it feels so slippery, particularly for those of us in medicine, and how you are able to reconnect with it. And it's not just for yourself, but for the colleagues and the learners who are watching how you show up and lead every day. And then, of course, at the end, I will give you a preview of our next episode, where we will talk all about advocacy, how to take your renewed sense of purpose and use it to create change in the systems that we work in. So let's start by defining what our purpose is. Purpose is the why behind the what. It's not the to-do list. It's not the inbox. It's not even the job title. Purpose is the deeper reason that gives those things meaning. For some of us, it might be caring for patients in their most vulnerable moments. For others, it might be mentoring the next generation of physicians, nurses, or educators. For some, it's all about leading our teams or improving systems so that care is more humane and effective. For some of us, it is getting to be part of the most joyful part of people's lives. And here is the key. Purpose does not have to be grand, and it does not have to be dramatic. It does not need to be a polished mission statement, though having one can help. Sometimes your purpose is simply deciding, today, my purpose is to show up fully for the residents that I'm teaching or the patients who I'm caring for. Today, the purpose is to make sure that this patient feels seen in a system that too often overlooks them. Our purpose is about our alignment. It is asking, does the way that I spend my energy reflect what actually matters the most to me? So as I'm recording this, I'm getting ready to go into interview season for residency. And it's always such an energizing time to get to see the purpose of all of those who are coming forth in my specialty. And it always makes me sad to think that sometimes that purpose slips away. And so why does it slip away, especially in healthcare? Well, one reason is the systemic complexity. We work in organizations designed for efficiency, billing, and outcomes, not for meaning, not for those relationships that many of us care about. And when you spend most of your days documenting or checking boxes or on the phone chasing those approvals, well, it's really easy to lose sight of that important why that you started with. Another reason why purpose can get lost is the overload. When you are running on empty, survival becomes the goal. And survival mode does not leave any room for reflection on the deeper purpose. It doesn't leave any room for appreciation. And then there's also the identity shifts. Many of us enter medicine with a strong sense of who we are. It might be, I'm the physician, or I'm the educator, or I'm the nurse. But as our careers evolve, we take on new roles. That might be committee member or administrator, leader, and then some of the roles we take on at home too, such as parent. And sometimes that old purpose, well, it just doesn't quite fit anymore. The danger here is that when our purpose gets buried under everything, when it's no longer in the forefront of our mind, burnout can be right around the corner. Because without purpose, the work just feels like an endless treadmill. It's exhausting, it's repetitive, and it feels like it's going nowhere. So let me share a moment from my own journey. There was a season where on paper, it looked like I was thriving. I had clinical responsibilities where I was able to really connect with my patients, and I had expanded my scope and was able to really do all of the things that I wanted to do. I had leadership roles where I was able to really look out for my community. I had teaching commitments, and my calendar was packed. But at night, I would sit in my office and look at my to-do list, and I would wonder what had happened. I would wonder why none of it felt like I was connected to the reason why I went into medicine. And it made me wonder if I should stay in medicine. Now, I wasn't failing. I wasn't underperforming, but I wasn't enjoying it. And I had drifted from my purpose. And because of that, I felt disoriented. I felt exhausted. I was cranky and not nice to my family. And honestly, I often felt resentful. The turning point came when I really stopped and I asked myself, what actually matters to me in this season? Not what mattered to me 10 years ago, not what matters for me in some perfect future, but what matters to me right now. That question was a really hard question, but that question changed everything. It did not take away the demands, but it did help me realign how I approach them. And when I found ways to reconnect my daily work to that deeper why, even in the smallest ways, I felt more grounded. I felt more alive. I felt more resilient. And I felt better able to make a decision on if I was doing what mattered. So, how do we, in purely practical terms, reconnect with our purpose? Well, one of the most useful tools I have found is a 4-question strategy that comes from Margie Worrell. She published it in Forbes magazine, and it helps us really reflect on purpose. And so I want to take a few moments and walk through them together. The first question is, what makes you come alive? I want you to think about those moments when you feel most energized at work, at home, with your friends. Where are those things that really do that for you? Maybe it's seeing the spark in a learner's eyes when a concept clicks. Maybe it's being fully present with a patient. Maybe it's leading a team through a tough challenge and seeing everyone pull together. Maybe it's when you see your children do something that you've taught them. All of those moments are clues. They show you where your purpose is already working and where maybe you can lean in more. And it's important, again, to remember that this answer might be different today than it was 10 years ago, and should be different today than it will be 10 years from now. So the second question that I want you to ask yourself is, what are your innate strengths? We often overlook our gifts because they feel just too easy. But those are exactly the areas where we can serve most authentically. They're the areas where we're not pushing quite as hard, where we feel the most natural. Maybe you are a natural encourager. Maybe you are great at translating complexity into clarity. Maybe you are the calm in the storm when everyone else is spinning out. Maybe you're like me and can look to see how the dominoes will fall with different decisions. When you lean into these strengths, it connects you with your purpose in a way that feels sustainable and authentic and not forced. So moving on to our third question, where do you add the greatest value? This is about contribution. Where does your presence make a tangible difference? Sometimes this is similar to the answer number 2, but not necessarily. Sometimes it's your strengths plus what you really enjoy, or your strengths plus what other people around you don't necessarily love to do. Maybe it's mentoring residents who are just starting on their journey. Maybe it's advocating for patients who don't always have a voice. Maybe it's building culture and trust on your team. Your purpose often lives at the intersection of what lights you up and what you're good at. Your purpose often lives at the intersection of what lights you up, what you're good at, and where it really matters. And on to our fourth and final question. How will you measure your life? Well, this one really zooms out. At the end of the day, how do you want to define a life well lived? It's important to know that this answer is different for everyone. We all have different values and we all have different things that we hold ourselves up to. So my answer should look different than yours. So ask yourself, is it titles, publications, recognition? Or is it the lives that you've touched, the learners that you've mentored, the legacy that you've left behind? This question grounds us. It reminds us that purpose isn't about the urgent emails or the endless paperwork. It's all about our meaning. Together, these 4 questions work like a compass. What makes you come alive is fuel for your soul. What strengths you have are your tools. Where you add the greatest value, well, that's your arena. And how you measure your life, well, that's your direction. When you feel disconnected, sitting with these questions, even for 10 minutes, can shift everything. as long as you were honest with yourself about your answers. So here's the reframe. Purpose isn't something you find once and keep forever. It's something you return to again and again. And as educators and as leaders, this isn't just about us. The people we lead are learning from how we show up. If they see us disconnected, if they see us cynical and burnt out, well, they will assume that that's the cost of success. But it shouldn't have to be. Because if they see us living with purpose and aligning our energy with what matters, even in the smallest of ways, well, we give them permission to do the same. That's how we break the cycle of burnout for the next generation. When I sit down with my learners or I sit down with my team and I'm asking them where they want to go next, I lean into the purpose because the next step shouldn't be about what will look the best on my CV. It should be about what will lead me in the right direction to leaving the legacy that I want to leave. And sure, maybe it'll be the thing that looks good on your CV, but that can't be the only reason behind it. So here is my invitation to you. Take 5 minutes this week to sit down with these 4 questions. Write them down. Talk them through with a trusted friend or colleague or family member, or use them to guide your reflection on a long day. Ask yourself, what makes me come alive? What are my innate strengths? Where do I add the greatest value? And how will I measure my life? Because purpose is not lost. It's there, waiting to be rediscovered. And remember, your answers now should look different than they did 10 years ago, and should look different than they will 10 years from now. This is a question you can always bring yourself back to when you are not sure what the next steps are. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today on The Hidden Load. In our next episode, we are going to build on this conversation and talk all about advocacy. Once we've tapped into recovery and reconnected with our purpose, the next natural step is asking, how do I use this clarity to push for change in the system? How do I make healthcare better, not just for me, but for those coming after me? I can't wait to explore that with you. And until then, remember, you don't have to wait for purpose to find you. You can choose to reconnect with it, one small step at a time. Thanks for joining me on The Hidden Load. Tag me on Instagram at Dr. Tina Wheat or email me at santina@santinawheat.com with your takeaways and ideas. Don't forget to subscribe. And until next time, let's lighten your hidden load.